When Congressman Dan Goldman takes the mic, he doesn't hold back, calling out Republicans for gutting FEMA's disaster funding while slipping in $300 million so Donald Trump can play golf on the taxpayers' dime. This isn't just hypocrisy. It's a window into how power protects privilege, even in the middle of national emergencies.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're here today, ostensibly, to fund the Department of Homeland Security through a partisan reconciliation bill that intentionally and very clearly bypasses any cooperation with Democrats. I want to talk for a minute about what is actually in this bill, which is pretty remarkable. First of all, 2/3 of the funding in this bill goes to the border wall. Now, you can make arguments about the border wall all you want. Obviously, we know it's a pet project of the president. Would it be better if we had a border wall to keep the border safe? Probably. But is it really the most effective use of $46 billion? Of course not. Because not included in here is any funding for the actual effective methods of keeping the border secure. We live in a technological world right now where building a wall, where we've seen people scale it very easily, where we've seen it fall down because of the wind, is a relic from the 1950s that should not be what our government is spending $46 billion on. But worse, let's talk about what is not in this bill. There is no money for emergency management for FEMA. Now, this is not a partisan issue. Red districts suffer from natural disasters certainly as much or more as blue districts. And I can assure you, to my Republican colleagues, that when your district gets a flood or a tornado or a hurricane, you are going to be coming to FEMA begging for money. And I don't want to hear a single word from any of my Republican colleagues about where is FEMA when they need emergency management support. Because you are voting for a bill that includes nothing for money that you will need, and you will need it. You are being short-sighted. But do not worry, there is money for FEMA. There is money for FEMA, $300 billion. You know what that's for? For Donald Trump to play golf. $300 million to reimburse local law enforcement for presidential protection related to activities by the president. $300 million. Donald Trump has played golf 24 out of his first 99 days. That is a quarter of the days. So you are funding a bill that does not give any money for natural disasters, that does not repay towns, cities, states for the tremendous amount of money that they have paid out for our immigration system to operate? No. And that's red districts too. But we are going to make sure Donald Trump can play golf, because that's where our $300 million of FEMA money should go to. It's a disgrace. And it's a disgrace that none of my Republican colleagues will speak up against this money for golf, against the obvious and egregious due process violations. I know you. I know you are good people. I know you care about due process. You care about the rule of law. And I know in your private moments, when you think about Kilmar Abregu Garcia, and you see that the administration admitted that he was wrongly deported and sent to a prison in El Salvador, that you know that the president should simply correct the mistake, bring him back home so he can go through the proper court system. When are you going to speak publicly? When are you going to speak out for simple due process, which is the bedrock of our country? Because now it's going from Kilmar Abregu to American citizens, and who knows when it will be next. Donald Trump's not listening to me, but he will listen to you all. And I urge you to speak up for the good of our Constitution.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Representative Dan Goldman just did what so many Americans wish more lawmakers would do: call out hypocrisy, waste, and flat-out corruption in government spending. What we just saw wasn't some partisan jab. It was a reality check, a moral indictment of an administration that claims to put America first while literally diverting emergency relief funds to bankroll luxury and leisure. Let's make that clear. $300 million of FEMA funds, money meant for communities in crisis, for people whose homes have been flattened by hurricanes, for families who've lost everything in floods or fires, redirected so Donald Trump can play golf. You can't make that up. That's not America first. That's self-interest at its most shameless. Goldman lays out the absurdity with precision. The same Republicans who wave flags about fiscal responsibility are voting for a bill that guts FEMA, strips disaster response capacity, and replaces it with billions for a border wall that even experts admit is outdated and ineffective. You can't call that leadership. That's performative politics. And here's the kicker. This isn't just about numbers. It's about priorities. You've got families in Florida and Texas still rebuilding from past storms, communities in the Midwest recovering from floods, and wildfire zones across the West desperate for federal relief. And yet, those emergency funds are being frozen or redirected to photo ops and presidential golf courses. What Goldman's saying, beneath all the fire, is that this isn't a partisan fight, it's a moral one. Because when disaster strikes, nature doesn't check party affiliation. Floodwaters don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. Every senator, every representative will be back at FEMA's doorstep when tragedy hits their district, the very same agency their own votes just defunded. And Goldman's not just highlighting waste, he's also calling out cowardice. He's saying to his Republican colleagues, you know this is wrong. You know this violates the rule of law, violates due process, and betrays your own constituents. So why stay silent? That's a powerful challenge, because silence isn't neutrality, it's complicity. When lawmakers choose to protect power instead of people, we all pay the price. We pay it in flooded homes, delayed relief, underfunded hospitals, and broken trust. Goldman's warning is simple. If they can steal from FEMA to fund golf trips, what won't they touch next? And that question, that line, is what makes this moment resonate. It's not just about Trump or one spending bill. It's about a pattern of politics where accountability disappears the moment loyalty becomes currency. This is why hearings like this matter. They're not just theater, they're documentation. They show us in real time how power operates when it's unchecked, and why voices like Goldman's, whether you agree with him or not, are necessary to drag truth into the sunlight. So when you see this clip, don't just see outrage. See evidence. See where your tax dollars are actually going. Because that's the question Goldman is forcing the country to confront. Who is government really working for? If you believe in transparency, accountability, and decency in leadership, subscribe to Left Lens, because this is what we do. We break through the noise, unpack the power, and tell you what's really at stake.